and good evening, all of you viewers live joining us for tonight's Build Tech Talk. Thank you all for joining. Welcome this evening to an evening about composable commerce, a hot topic currently in the industry. A lot of traction thanks to the rise of a lot of, let's say, composable commerce vendors, headless commerce vendors. So yeah, an important topic at the moment. We're going to start in a few minutes with first a short introduction about what we think composable commerce is, followed by a roundtable discussion where we will further deep dive a little bit more into composable commerce, into what we think it is. And then from there on, we will head towards the technology with the presentation from Ashish and Gabriel. Build Talks from Capgemini, or at least organized by Capgemini, but certainly not for Capgemini only, for everybody to join. Organized every 2 times a month on Tuesday evening. You can tune in for our tech talks. And yeah, we're talking about different topics ranging from AI to web technology. Everything you can imagine can be found in the Build Tech Talks. So make sure that you are subscribed or joining us via the Meetup site that we have for that one. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Frank van der Kreeke. He is one of our leading composable commerce and e-commerce specialists within Capgemini, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about what he thinks composable commerce actually is. Frank, good evening.
Good evening. All right, thank you very much for the intro. And so indeed, my name is Frank van der Kreeke. I'm a platform strategist. So I help and advise customers on how to set up such a composable commerce architecture. But next to that, I'm also engaged actually in setting up such composable commerce at clients itself. So currently also engaged in one of those composable commerce projects based on commercetools actually. And so a short intro on what is composable commerce. First, I would like to set a little bit the context. So why all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but why and where it's actually coming from. And what we see is that customers, they more and more focus on bringing actually value. They see that speed and adaptability is very important. And they no longer just treat a commerce solution as a project, but more as a product, what needs to evolve and can add value over the years. Also, they focus way more on bringing small batch sizes, and that also aligns a little bit with the flexibility. So then, what is composable commerce? It's a modern approach where e-commerce teams are empowered to select and assemble very best-of-breed commerce solutions and compose them together and to make a modular, open, flexible, and business-focused platform. And Gartner also states that organizations that adopt such a composable approach, they will outpace the competition by 80%. And what is then MACH? I think a lot of people, they also know MACH. And what is then the difference between composable commerce and MACH? Well, actually, to my understanding and to my description, composable commerce is actually very much aligned with MACH, which stands for microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. I think where composable commerce deviates a little bit is that they not necessarily agree with the granularity of the service. And so that for them, it's not per se a microservice, but it can also be a little bit bigger, like a macro service. And they then Gartner refers to that as package-based solutions for capabilities. And so is the composable commerce then already for me? Is it the holy grail? And the answer to that completely depends on your business challenges. Can depend on the industry you're in. Is there a lot of disruption? Are you doing B2B or B2C? And so we made sort of let's say a maturity in here. And so for a lot of customers that are in B2B, maybe in a more traditional industry, let's say an all-in e-commerce platform can still be perfectly fine for them and has the answer to the business challenges. But let's say you want to have a more performing solution, and then you can, for instance, start looking at SaaS platforms. And do you really want to start creating your experiences on the front completely yourself? And then the next step can be an API-first headless strategy. And then if you even have more challenges, let's say you want to individually scale out, for instance, a cart or order, and then you can slowly move to a microservices-based architecture. But yeah, like I said, it's really not the holy grail. It's also not a suitable solution for everyone. It really depends on the business challenges. And that also goes in hand a little bit with this slide. So adopting composable commerce, it comes with a lot of agility and flexibility, but it will also come at the price of complexity. And so you have more moving parts, you will have more SaaS vendors to manage, and maybe you also have to invest more in your own capabilities. And an important note here as well, which I stated at the bottom, it goes a little bit together with Conway's law, that at the end you also need to organize yourself differently. And you cannot organize yourself against, let's say, the more horizontal layers where you would have one front-end team, one business logic team, and one back-end team. And these services are really vertical and end-to-end. So you should really, let's say, start having multidisciplinary teams where you can end-to-end deliver a future. And the way I've seen it a lot of times, it's a little bit organized along the customer journey. So you would have teams that just focus on product discovery, teams that focus on let's say the cart and checkout, and of course it depends a little bit on your organization. But note here is that you need to organize differently. So that's a little bit the intro to composable commerce. Yeah, let's go into the roundtable, and then I hand it over to Bart again.
Yeah, thank you, Frank, and thank you for this short and to the point introduction. Of course, this short introduction raises a couple of new questions that we thought would be best answered by some of the most renowned industry experts from both Capgemini and in this case also commercetools. So I would like to move on to indeed the roundtable and quickly introduce you to Robert Kooloos. He is currently leading within Capgemini the Netherlands our e-commerce practice. Of course, Frank will be joining again, and we have also Arin joining us. Arin is one of our technology experts in the field of e-commerce, and we're also happy to welcome our special guest Ivo Bronsveld, who is head of integrations at commercetools. Guys, can you quickly tell a little bit more about what exactly you do in your daily jobs and around e-commerce specifically?
Yes, okay, I will start. I will keep it very short. I'm a digital strategist and commerce lead within Capgemini in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah, I already introduced myself, but from Kreeke, I'm working very close together with Robert. But my main focus is more on the delivery of these platforms.
And Arin?
Yep, I'm Arin Roy. I'm a cloud solution architect at Capgemini, mainly focused on commerce and other implementations in Microsoft Azure Cloud.
Okay, and finally our special guest, Ivo. Ivo, you're on mute.
I'm unmuted. There we go. Ivo, I'm head of integrations at commercetools, which means that I'm responsible for all things to do with third-party integration. So composable commerce is what I do every day.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you all for this short introduction. Before we continue with this roundtable, I would like to point out to our viewers who are watching us live that they can actually ask questions both on Twitch and YouTube, and we'll try to address them during this roundtable if possible. So we have been listening to the introduction from Frank about what we think composable commerce is. But I'm interested, Robert, for example, what do you think are, let's say, what's the key benefit for you of taking this kind of approach and, building e-commerce solutions?
I think the key benefit in my view is the problems that it brings around bringing more speed and adaptability to the modern enterprise. In the sense that you need to be able to properly respond to the ever-accelerating change in the marketplace these days. And with COVID, I think change is going even faster than we were already used to. And next to that, I think the change that is going on with the digital technologies that are available these days, that is raising also the bar in customer expectations, which will make sure that you need to properly respond and able to keep on being innovative to stay relevant towards the end customers and to bring value to the end customers.
Okay.
And if we look at that, then I think it's being the composable commerce part is helping to bring speed both on the front end side. Brings speed towards the different heads that can be decoupled from the backend logic, and therefore you will be able to bring in new heads more easily, and it also is independent. You can also release independently from the logic in the backend part because you are building on top of these APIs. And then on the backend side, you have, as Frank already explained, you might have either packaged business capabilities from the different commerce vendors in the market, or the different MACH vendors in the market. And next to that, you can also build your own bespoke microservices, which will really differentiate you from your competition. And I think that together it brings that you have a very flexible system, a very adaptable system, with small teams that can, for example, focus on certain packaged business capabilities or on certain microservices, and they are really self-sufficient and autonomous. It's more the feature teams that are responsible from the customer experience up until the database, and therefore they can also release independently from the other teams.
Okay. Great answer, of course. Very elaborate. Thank you. Same question, maybe from a more technical point of view for Arin. What do you think are, let's say, in this approach, the key benefits, or at least for you, the most important benefit?
So composable at the core of composable commerce is, of course, a composable application, and with a composable application approach, we see more and more that there is a whole decoupled nature of the front end that Robert mentioned, and that is becoming more and more an enabler or an accelerator for this approach. So backend capabilities, you can develop them independent or even launch them independent of the front end. So it gives you more flexibility on how fast you can bring features to your customers, for example. So, and if you tie that with, let's say, the kind of capabilities you can buy or rent from large vendors in the market, if you tie it all together, you have a plethora of options that opens up for you from a composable commerce perspective.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that answer. And also, I'm going to close with this question with Ivo, but Frank, you first. What are your thoughts?
Maybe a little bit more practical example, because today is Tuesday, and that means in the Netherlands there's again a press conference at 7 about the corona, and I think maybe 6-7 weeks ago, or maybe even longer, there was such a press conference as well, where they announced that all the stores they needed to close, that they could only do click and collect. And one of our customers, which is on such composable commerce architecture, of course they're a little bit longer already on the journey, but they were able to have within one sprint to support click and collect through all their stores. And even the business there, they were quite amazed with how fast such a change could be implemented. So that's really a practical example of how agile you can be, and how fast new features and value drivers can be implemented.
Okay, and finally, from a more product perspective, let's say, Ivo, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I think composable commerce for us as a vendor is also a very important part, because it also enables our customers to migrate to our platform in a, let's say, a more granular way, right? You can start by just doing things like cards and checkout, and then slowly migrating towards the entire platform, or migrating other parts to other systems, right? So I think it also makes it a lot more easy and a lot more powerful to do the migration. So rather than having to do the big bang, you can just gradually migrate to a commerce platform, and then mix and match whatever services you would need at any point in time. So that's one angle, I would say, on top of the fact that there's just certain solutions that have dedicated solutions for things like payments or order management that might just be needed for certain customer requirements.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so indeed, that's sort of like the red line through all the answers that I've been hearing so far. That it's indeed really about moving from this situation in the past where e-commerce were these large kind of monolithic platforms where you had to do everything all at once, while now we're getting into, let's say, a more microservices / cloud native kind of e-commerce world, where indeed step by step you can transition to solutions such as, of course, commercetools. So interesting to hear that from you guys, and actually that triggers me, because I myself, I've been very fortunate to also work in an e-commerce environment where we moved essentially from also such a big monolith towards a microservices / cloud native world, which seems to be like the foundation for the composable commerce. But if we look at this transition, let's say, what are like the things that we're seeing in the industry when companies and when organizations start to move in that direction, and especially also for commerce, what kind of patterns, well, again, for you, maybe Ivo, do you see happening there?
Yeah, so I think the big part there, right, around everything is that you do need to have the infrastructure, and I think that was also mentioned in the intro, like not so much the infrastructure necessarily as like cloud infrastructure or but also just you need to have the organization ready to do this kind of transition. So that is, I think, an incredibly important part that's sometimes overlooked, that you need to have a bit of the, let's say, knowledge or experience to build a composable architecture and make the most of it. Like, there's plenty of customers that are considering this, but in the end, it might be, not for them, because it requires a lot of adaptation and, kind of new technologies they might have to learn, or new DevOps procedures that they're not aware of that, make it harder for them to do. So I think there's a lot of prerequisites in a way to figure out. But once you're there, that's when things really start accelerating and become incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's also my personal experience. First focus on how you bring the agility to your organization itself.
Yeah.
And then adjust, of course, your architecture and your technology to it. But start there. But still,
yeah, I would definitely say it's not a technical problem, right? It's more of an organization problem.
True. But still, maybe Arin, if you hear this transition also, what from your experience are like the more technical kind of challenges that you also see happening?
I think I concur with Ivo. So from an organizational maturity, that's the primary step, because if you try to directly jump into a composable enterprise application space, you probably run into more problems than what you are solving. So you should take small steps. So for some organizations, if you, let's say, already have an established microservices kind of architecture, you should probably try to build on your build your own solutions on that slowly, and let's say for the more specialized stuff, you could rely on vendors that provide, let's say, the best practice capabilities for the features you're looking at. So try to find the right mix of what you build in-house versus what you can get from the market.
Yep. And Robert, do you also have a take on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Ivo and Arin are saying about this topic. And what I would like to add is that in the end, when I'm advising my clients on where they need to move next, I think it's always about the customer experience. So what is this helping the customer experience to be improved? Yes or no? And where are the big bottlenecks within this customer experience currently? If for example, I had a client that was doing quite well with their platform, but one of the things that was underperforming and was not on par with the expectations of their customers was their search and merchandising capability. So then we focused on that part first, and we selected the best possible solution for them, and we were able to improve the search and the discovery capabilities for the customers to find the right products for what they really need. And then it's bringing real value again to the end customers. And I think from that angle, yeah, you can take this approach. And then if you are swapping out the search capability from the monolithic platform, for example, you're already in you're already going towards a more composable architecture, and it's you're following a strangler pattern. I think a lot of the audience we recognize this pattern.
Yeah, definitely. So this is indeed also from my personal experience very recognizable. There is it's one of the things that I always see happening, that there's a tendency that when you start talking about microservices, that we think that people start to think in custom software development terms. These are custom developed microservices. While I think you also, let's say, for the functionality that it provides, should ask yourself, can I actually also purchase this? Can I also get such a piece of functionality or API that it exposes from a commercial vendor, and maybe thereby saving me a lot of challenges that I would otherwise have to take up myself. Search is always, of course, a famous example where you can go the Elasticsearch route and build it all yourself, or maybe even further down the stack and take Lucene itself. Or do you go with something like Bloomreach or Threadhopper, the usual suspects, or a more cloud native kind of solution such as Algolia? We got a great question actually from the audience that helps us bring in the remaining 5 minutes of this round table to what we already talked about in preparing this round table as well. It's like, okay, what are like the challenges that we are we seeing? So it's indeed the question from Utval, I hope I pronounced his first name correctly, Kumartoda, who asked us like, okay, what are the top 5 mistakes? Now, given time, I don't think we can. Let's let everybody just mention one mistake, because we're with the 5 of us. So, what do you think are key mistakes, Frank?
And maybe not a key mistake, but I think what you should not forget is when you build stuff on cloud native, it really helps if you already have capabilities within your company to do that. Some companies they more or less adopted this cloud first, so they try to rationalize all their applications and build them on the cloud. But there you see building on the cloud, it's completely different than building something else. So if you already have capabilities and experience, that would really help as an accelerator to build such a platforms. So there's also some customers maybe that have more, let's say, SaaS solutions, and they don't necessarily have these cloud COEs or cloud first strategy, then it can add some, let's say, more complexity, because the way how we build on the cloud is completely different. And I think that's one of my key takeaways, that if you have those capabilities, that would really help already to set up such an architecture.
Okay, and what about you, Arin? What do you think what kind of mistakes do you bump into?
Yeah, I think when we talk composable, we also talk microservices, and then it's all about domain-specific services and how you, let's say, distribute your data. So a data model is quite core to how you set up your application or your commerce platform. So make good decisions there, and try to keep them as domain-specific as possible, so that you have more flexibility when you have to switch a service over with something else or a better service at a later time.
And Robert, what do you think is a frequent mistake made from your experience?
Maybe also to add on the point that Arin was making, because I think the data is really important, and getting the data out, especially when you're working with the large enterprises where you have a lot of different business units, a lot of different brands operating in different countries. Then you also have different ERP systems and systems of records where all the data resides, product data or pricing data, or also the customer data, and you need to get that into the front end and into the composable commerce architecture. Yeah, that's sometimes something that is being underestimated. What I've noticed.
Okay. And then finally, Ivo, your take on this.
Yeah, and I'm going to combine this with some of the other great comments that I've seen in the chat come by. I think one of the biggest things that I would advise people to do, so rather than saying the top 5 mistake, I would say, please try to keep it small in the beginning, right? So don't start with that big bang. Keep it small, try things out, see if you can take one part, like whether that is the product catalog or maybe the checkout process and shopping carts and stuff. Start with that, do a POC, try it out. I think that's also, to the other question, a great way to convince the senior stakeholders in your organization to just show that it can work, right? And definitely leverage all the things that you already have and try to migrate slowly, and only when it makes sense. You shouldn't have to migrate everything all at once, definitely not at once, but also at different times. You might say, this works perfectly well, let's keep it where it is. So I think that's the key of composable, right? That you can do things whenever it makes sense, and if it doesn't, don't do it.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. That's actually how we did it also at the client that I'm currently working for, and from my own experience, when we started migrating towards a microservices architecture, you basically look at the customer journey that you want to provide to your customers. You identify the steps that the customer is going through. And then step by step, essentially, you start to, carve out your microservices, and then one by one, step by step, you start actually building them, and actually also template by template. And what I mean by that is that we indeed also said, like, okay, let's first start with a simple content page, not even a real, not even something like the product detail page or the product listed page, but a simple content page first, see how that works out. Start with a new front end, and then from there on we started moving towards the listers and the product detail page and search, and then at the same time, in parallel, we had a separate team that was starting on the checkout and the My Account. A challenge that, from my experience, then also rises, which actually also taps into the question raised again by Uvo. I hope I still pronounce it. Kumartoda, about should it be better to get your APIs directly at the ERP ecosystem or from the ERP ecosystem? Could be. It of course always depends, but from my experience, it turned out to be very difficult to actually build our own APIs on top of our, for example, product master data management system. I'm actually working for a retailer at the moment, and yeah, your product master data is basically your catalog, and that turned out to be very difficult to make a performing and stable API on it, even while we were not actually tapping into the database of the MDM system itself. We were making a copy of it in a low latency database, in this case DynamoDB from AWS, and then have our own custom built API on top of it, and it was still difficult to come up with a nice performance distribution, which is very challenging to keep under control. And by that I mean, like, okay, how is your first 50% of calls to such an API performing, and then the other 75 and so forth, until you get to the always difficult 95% onwards. So that was my experience, and I think that there you really need to be keen on loosely coupling your ERP systems in terms of trying to make it event driven. If something changed with regard to a product or a price in one of those systems, let it send an event that your e-commerce environment can respond to, and then store whatever is needed into its own e-commerce fast databases. Okay, looking at the time, we are running out of time for this roundtable, because we have a great presentation now waiting from Ashish, who is going to further deep dive into commercetools. But before I do that, I would like to thank all our panelists for sharing their views. I see a lot of additional questions being raised in the chat. We'll try to address them as well. But again, for now, thank you, and it's time to bring in Ashish. So we switch the screen. So Ashish is one of our technical commercetools guys, and he will, as I said, tell us a little bit more about what commercetools is about, how it works, at least a high-level overview. So Ashish, whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Bart. Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining, and a warm welcome to you. And today I'm going to give an introduction to the commercetools, and what I'll basically cover in this will be my own introduction first, then what is commercetools and what does it offer, and then I like to end up with the extensibility in commercetools. So my name is Ashish Monga. I'm raised in India and now I'm living in the Netherlands. I have close to 10 years of experience working on the e-commerce based technologies, specifically the SAP Commerce, Shopify Plus, commercetools, Fluent Commerce, SAP Upscale. And from last 2.5 years, I'm working with Capgemini in the Netherlands. And as the part of my role, I help my clients with end-to-end solutioning of e-commerce based business and technical challenges considering their overall digital landscape. So I move on to the overview of commercetools. Then a lot of you must have heard about the term MACH, and that what we already saw in the earlier part of this presentation by Frank. So as the industry continues, MACH is proving to be the foundation for the new generation of software and system integrators. MACH stands for microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. And these are the guiding principles on which the commercetools is built upon. Then I move to the functionality overview. So as commercetools, so this indicates that what does commercetools has to offer out of the box. And then meaning, so commercetools it's built on all the APIs, and then these APIs and the microservices, these offers the functionalities which are in a way self-sufficient for any e-commerce based application. So these are the functionalities related to PIM, the product information management. So it could be related to categories, products, product variants, reviews, inventory, and so on. It could be related to the customer data management, that meaning for the prices, discounts, discount codes, shipping methods. Then we have the functionalities related to the order management system, which could be related to carts, orders, shipments, and so on. Then there can be business modeling related functionalities as well, like for example, for the countries, states, languages, etc. And then Commerce Tools, it also offers the extensibility, like the platform can be extended in the form of the product types can be made, the new product attributes, and the custom fields, custom objects, and so on, that we'll see in detail in the upcoming slides. Then I move to the next slide. So Merchant Center. So a Merchant Center, this is an administration tool which helps client to manage the data of their projects in the Commerce Tools platform. And then it can be used, for example, managing a product catalog, orders, discounts, etc. So let's have a quick look at the Merchant Center. So this is how the Commerce Tools Merchant Center looks like. And then, so this is like a back office tool wherein you can view the different parts of the Commerce Tools. So you can have the products, you can view the categories, customers, orders, discounts. Within settings, one can go into the product settings and can view the different information about the taxes, shipping methods, channels, stores, and so on for the stores. Then let me go back to the product list and see. Yeah, so for example, this is the custom product that we have created, which is that we have created with the name Capgemini, and then the user can look through the various product description, product key. Then one can go into the variants and can look into the different variants for this product, its prices, its image, its inventory, all can be managed from this particular tool. Then the next thing that I would like to show is about API documentation. So in the Commerce Tools based microservices solution, there are 300 plus commerce APIs that can be consumed individually. So let me give you a little overview about the API documentation. So for accessing the different documentations for these microservices and these APIs, one can go into the docs.commercetools.com, and here, let's say I want to search for the API details for getting product by key. And then I land up to the get product by key API, wherein I can view the endpoint, like this is the get API and this is the endpoint for it. And then the response that I received will be in this particular format. So these all will be fields, and then it will be in the form of, let's say the ID will be in the form of string, key will be in the form of string, and so on. Then let's try it out. So let's go into the Postman, and then let me try to hit this particular API for getting the product with this ID. So we just saw this product in the Merchant Center, which is currently existing with the ID 11111. So then when I go into my into the Postman, and then I hit this particular URL with the get structure, then I can see, I can obtain all the information which is related to this product, meaning its description, its name, its prices, then its discount, if it is on discount or not. So all this information can be obtained and can be used by any front-end tool as required. Then I go back to my slide and I go back to my upcoming slides. Then one of the most important factor in Commerce Tools, which is the extensibility. So it always happens that for any real application, there might be requirement wherein you would like to extend the functionalities which are already provided by the e-commerce application, already provided by the platform, here in commercetools in this case. So it could be either related to the data model extensibility. So you can extend the product or product types, you can create the custom types, you can create the custom objects. So the data model extensibility can be achieved in commercetools. Then it could be behavior extensibility as well. So you can create your custom state machines, you can create subscriptions or the API extensions that we will look in the upcoming slides. And then you can have the business tooling extensions as well. So you can create the merchant center custom applications also. Then going to the state machines. So state machines are used to model states of certain objects such as orders, line items, products, reviews, and payments to define these finite state machines reflecting the business logic you'd like to implement. So in this particular case, what we have tried to demonstrate is that, for example, there is a particular product, and then one makes a change on that particular product. Then it needs to be sent for an approval. Then there'll be a legal sign off, then a marketing sign off, then it is ready to publish and live, and then it goes live. So this kind of a workflow called as the state machine can be created in commercetools out of the box. Then I go back to my extensibility slide. So we covered the custom state machines. Then the behavior can also be extended in the form of subscriptions or via the API extensions. So let's look towards the subscription. So a subscriptions are used to trigger an asynchronous background process in response to an event to the commercetools platform. So in this particular case, the subscriptions are normally created for the CRUD operations, the create, read, update, and delete operations. So an example of this could be that, let's say when an order is created from a cart, then I want to send an email to the client saying that this particular order is created and all the details which are related to the order. Then how this can be achieved within the commercetools is, you can create a subscription with the message that order is created, and then the commercetool platforms, it creates a message which is sent to the cloud queue service, and this queue service, it pulls a message and which sends it to the client, and then the email can be sent towards the customer. So this is how we are achieving the asynchronous. This is how the asynchronous background process can be initiated using the subscription from the commercetools platform. Then the next part in the behavior extensibility could be API extension. If I go to my API extension slide, then we see that the API extensions, these are used for adding the synchronous behavior. So in this particular example, so there can be a particular requirement which says that, suppose when the cart is created, then add a mandatory insurance to the cart. So in this particular case, the client it creates a cart. There's a cart create command. So this cart API is invoked within the commercetools platform, and then it initiates a trigger. It triggers the extension, and then this extension, it executes the function, which could be an Azure function or a Google Cloud function, and then we receive the response back from this function towards the extension, and then this is sent back to the client. So in this particular case, what we are doing is we are adding a mandatory insurance to the cart once the cart is created. So this is a synchronous behavior which can be introduced by the commercetools by using the API extensions. Then I would like to move towards the last part, which is about the merchant center custom applications. So a custom application, it's a UI web application for the merchant center, which is designed to enable a project in the commercetools platform to create the specific needs of a customer. So it could be possible within a merchant center that we just saw to create the custom applications. So for example, one of the requirement could be that we want to show the category images in another tab within the merchant center itself. So such an application can be created. using the Merchant Center. And then there is also a UI kit which can be used to give the custom application a look and feel that's unified with the Merchant Center. So which is available within the Merchant Center out of the box. So this can be used and can be utilized to create such an custom application. By this, we reach towards the end of this presentation. And if we have any questions, we like to address it. And thank you all for your attention.
And thank you, Ashish, for your presentation as well. I think this was a nice introduction to what actually Commerce Tools is. And I'm quickly checking if there are any questions in the chat. One question that might be interesting is, let's say, how plug and play Commerce Tools and actually these kind of solutions in general maybe are with the external partner ecosystem. Have you already seen such solutions?
Yes, so currently I'm involved with a client wherein we are actually inducing we are having this data within the Commerce tool system, which we are able to achieve using the batches, and then these so the data can be induced within the Commerce tools using the CSV file, which is indeed possible, and then these can be integrated to the backend systems as well. So such capabilities are indeed present within the Commerce tools.
Okay, interesting. So, and then we have from Koustav coming in a question in a D2C and B2B scenario that's global, needing integration with multiple exotic payment gateways, as well as the big known players like PayPal, Google Play, etc. How easy is it to connect Commerce Tools to them? Yeah, so this is again also a similar kind of question, but then specifically for payment systems. Do you have any experience on that, Ashish?
It can be integrated with the payment systems as well. I unfortunately with this particular client of mine, I have not seen the payment integration yet, but I think we can check and get back on this. But
okay. And of course, we also, I see, have Ivo still with us answering questions in the chat as well. So maybe he can already address it too. Ashish, I would like to thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're going to move on to the next, because we're going to, as we know from Build Talks, deep dive also a little bit further into the technology. And for that, we're going to bring in Gabriël. Gabriël is one of our front-end software engineers at Capgemini. And yeah, he has actually made a interesting demo with Commerce Tools. Am I right, Gabriël, with that?
Yeah, it's of course what you deem interesting, but maybe like everyone in the chat, I hear a lot of talking and it's really interesting, but I'm the kind of guy who wants to get his hands dirty and really want to see it work. So I made a small proof of concept just to see if everything works and how it works.
Sure. That's of course interesting to listen to how it actually works in practice. So take it away, Gabriël.
Yeah, thank you. I see my slides are on the screen already. So what I did actually is I built a JAMstack and Commerce Tools powered webshop. And it's really plug and play and easy. It's not fully technically sound, but at least we have something. And I'd like to take everybody through that. But before we do that, let me see if I can get my slides to work. Yes. I'd like to give a small introduction also on what JAMstack actually is and why we want to use it. And then just really build our own web shop and do a hands-on, not really a code along, because I think we don't have too much time for that, but at least walk through the proof of concept I made, and then eventually wrap everything up. So yeah, let's dive into that. Like Bart said, I'm Gabriël Moawad. I'm 28 years old. I have some stuff on the screen here, what I like to do in lockdown right now, which basically is just gaming a lot because we can't do anything else, but yay. And I recently moved to this new apartment, so that's why everything here looks really empty. If anybody has a great tip on a plumber who can hook up my stove in the area of Utrecht, please hit me up in the comments, because I'm really messing around with that and I don't want to have a big explosion here. But okay, let's not dwell off too far. My professional career also maybe needs an introduction. As I've been working 7.5 years at Capgemini as of right now. Right now I've been working at the Dutch police, which is not, of course, really e-commerce related. But before I did that, I worked a bit at Suit Supply with Salesforce Commerce Cloud, which people might know. And before that, worked in Paris on Alinea and Lacoste, two French clients, which also works with Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Those were more monolithical architectures. And that's why this sort of sparked my interest, because commercetools, of course, isn't. And yeah, therefore, I want to dive into that. So let's not wait any longer and just do that. So first about the JAMstack. We heard Frank say a lot about MACH architecture. Ashish also came back to that. Yeah, there's multiple ways in which you can, of course, implement headless commerce clients, but also CMSs. MACH architecture is one of them, but the JAMstack is maybe a bit of a more low-level way of doing it, and maybe easier to build a POC with. So that's what I went for. And JAMstack actually stands for JavaScript, APIs, and markup. Like the slide says already, the JavaScript parts is for all dynamic elements on the pages and will run entirely client-side. The APIs, yeah, that's mostly the third-party services. It makes sense that we use commercetools for this POC, and that fits exactly here. And of course, we also have the markup. And that's maybe a good thing to zoom more into, because in the JAMstack, the markup isn't rendered server-side, but it's all done statically. And the static websites might sound like a thing from the past, because we might all remember dragging and dropping static HTML files into our FTP servers, but that's not what we're really aiming for with JAMstack. What a JAMstack does is it essentially generates a static website. So we can still utilize all the, how do you say that, features of using templates and that sort of stuff. But before we actually deploy it, we will generate a static site out of that. And that means we can just utilize storage instead of having a full-blown hosting environment. And it also means we don't have any runtime dependencies on application services and that sort of stuff. Because if we're gonna statically generate a website, we want to fetch that data and pre-build it. Yeah, there's a small asterisk there, because like I said, you can still use JavaScript for all client-side logic. But yeah, if there's any dependencies there, then of course you still depend on that at runtime. So how do we generate these static websites? You essentially have quite some static site generators already. You have some bigger ones like Next.js. I believe Nuxt.js is the Vue variant of that. Hugo, Gatsby, well, you see it on the screen here. You even have some small niche ones like Docsaurus. I just put it in here because I really love the logo. And you have Eleventy, which is the one we're going to use for this book. Eleventy is really simple and easy to understand. So yeah, like I said, it's just a proof of concept. So let's not dwell too far off on these static site generators and just use something which fits our needs for now. And like I said, if you can just utilize storage, you don't have these traditional web server requests deemed as the path of sadness here. Normally your browser would call a web server, which calls an app server, which communicates with a database, which gets the data and then needs to communicate that all back to your browser. If you have a static site, the only thing you have to do is host that static site somewhere. And we have these beautiful content delivery networks set up for that, usually used for things like libraries and that sort of stuff. But now we can just host our full website on that. That means, yeah, like CDNs do, scaling is just a matter of serving these files on more places. We don't have to have any servers generating or running, processing, whatever needed to host this website. We can just put our site on a CDN server somewhere, and then it's cached, and you will get a real fast response. So that's beautiful, especially in an e-commerce context, because I don't know the real numbers on that. I think Bart will probably fill me in on that, because I know he's big on that. But every second it takes for a site to load comes back on your conversion, and basically means you make less money. And I guess that's something we all want if you have a commerce website. But the JAMstack, yeah, I said it already. You need to generate your site statically. There's, of course, a downside on that. And actually, I was at the JS World Conference, it was virtual, but I was there virtually. And Ishan Anand, co-founder of MoveWeb, had this beautiful graphic here. You actually have this JAMstack sweet spot. If you have a website which has lots of updates or has lots of pages, every time you need to process an update, it means he has to statically generate the whole website again. So if you have a lot of, for instance, a commerce website with lots of products, and I don't know, prices change 10 times a day, then of course your website is generating like all the time, because yeah, you want to reflect those changes. You have multiple strategies on that, how you can do that. Maybe build deltas, maybe only build it overnight, or maybe even do part of it statically and part of it dynamically. If you, for instance, only change prices that often, then that part doesn't have to be generated that often. But yeah, in that sense, the sweet spot, of course, is smaller websites with less updates. And yeah, the more you have, the more friction there will be and the more challenges there will be. So for this demo, I thought we can build one with lots of build time friction. But yeah, like the meme says here, it's basically set up for failure for a demo. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep it quite simple and build a one product website. And how we're going to do that is commercetools, of course. It's been mentioned quite often already. Eleventy, I just mentioned that for our static site generation. And of course, we have Netlify, which we're going to use to host all this and have a serverless backend for that. We have some small things in there which uses Node and NPM. And of course, we have GitHub for a repository and Nunjucks for some templating. But more on that later, because I'm going to dive into the code. It's demo time. Let me get the code on the screen real quick. So yeah, the thing is, like I said, I don't want to do a real code along, because it's still quite a bit of code to maybe digest for a small presentation like this. If you deem this interesting, I could maybe share the boilerplate code of this project later on. If you'd like that, make sure to say that in the comments. But what I want to do is do a small walkthrough on this. So we deemed the project Capgemini, because that's a small little pun on JAMstack, of course, and Capgemini, the company I work for, and lots of other people we've seen in these presentations. But this project consists out of multiple packages. So let's dive into the package JSON first. Actually, it's not really that big, because the PowerPoint slide I had on the screen just yet already spoiled a bit on that. We have Eleventy, our static site generator. We have Nunjucks for the templating, Axios, which is going to do some API communication, .env, basically some environmental variables. We have a bit of Lambda functionality, which works on Netlify, Node SAS, because we have some styling in there, and plugin for Nunjucks, which means we can include data. I intentionally skipped Fractal, because Fractal is a sort of design system / pattern library, which I just had in here to develop a bit quicker. But yeah, it's not really necessary for this project per se. So with these packages, we actually have a full functioning setup in which we can build these webshop already. We have multiple scripts running here, and I will dive into that a bit later. But the first thing we need when we are going to build a static site, besides, of course, having a template and that sort of stuff, is the data we want to insert in there. We saw Ashish already demonstrate this with the API call of the product. And I actually built this same call in this source data.js script, which is actually just a node script. And what it does is exactly the same as Ashish showed us. Let me scroll a bit down. It does a bit of authentication because otherwise we're not going to get any data from commercetools. But after that, it gets the product from the product URL, which is just the endpoint Ashish also used. And because I don't need all the data in there, I just picked the data I really needed. And I saved this to a file. So that's the first step we actually need to do. So if I go back into this package.json, you see here, I have a data function which just does the node source data. So let's just run that and see how that works. If I do npm run data in here, you will see everything's working correctly. That is going to run the source data script. So that's the whole file I just showed you guys. He writes these data he gets from the product into a data folder. So if I go into the components, we have the data folder here. And you can see indeed the data which he gets from commercetools written in this JSON file. Now that we have this data, it's really easy to incorporate this in the templates we have. So for instance, I have a page here called campaign.njk, or I should use this one actually, because this is the 11th version. And what you see here is that he gets this data JSON, the product JSON, and use it as product. And if we look for this product, you can see below, it of course uses subcomponents because I'm structured like that. Let's dive into this price.njk, for instance. If we go into atoms, we see price, we see the price.njk, and you can really see here that we use that product price and just display it here. So it's easy as that. We've gathered the information, we can insert this in our templating, and then, we have it there. But now I hear you thinking, cool, these templates, but you don't have a functioning website just yet. So how are we going to do that? Well, I've said it quite some time already. We have Eleventy. What Eleventy does is he gets these templates, and I believe somewhere here we have an index.md, a markdown file. And you can actually put some variables in here. And you can say which layout he needs to use. And Eleventy looks at these markdown files and actually processes these. And will, how do you say that? Generate the static website. So let me jump right back into the package.json. And you can see here that we have Eleventy serve. But I don't want to do that just yet because I want to do Eleventy build first, just to display how it works. So over here, we don't have a dist folder just yet. But if I do an npm run Eleventy build, let's see how long this takes. It's firing up as we speak. Yeah, you see that he now has written an index file to a dist folder. And it took him 0.66 seconds, which is really not that long. But yeah, like I said, can you imagine if you have a website which has, 1,000 products, then of course it starts to add up. So that's the sweet spot I was talking about. But like it says here, he copied one item and processed one file and saved it into the dist folder. And now we got this beautiful dist folder in here with the index.html. And like I just said, we had that price thing in there. And now we basically took the data from the data folder we had over here, combined it with a template, and built this static website out of that. This is not everything yet, because if we go back to the package.json, there's a little bit more magic in there, because if we look at the build function, you can see he first gets the data, then does some SCSS generation, then builds a Lambda function, which I'm going to get back into a bit later. And only then he's going to run the 11t build. So the only step we forgot here is npm run scss. So let me fire that up as well. And there we have it. Now he has generated that too. And now, if I didn't ruin anything, we can go to this index folder, or the dist folder, I should say, and open this index.html file. And you can really see that everything has come together here, and it's already displaying as we expected. Of course, only this part actually is the data in commercetools, because we have the title, we have the price, we have a discounted price, and because I love all my viewers, I will put it at €0 for you guys. And we have a description here, and of course an image. This is actually the data Ashish showed us in the Merchant Center. So every time you change it there and you build this again, it will get the new data. But now we only have it locally, right? And we want, or I should say, I want you guys to access this as well. So what we can do with that is, simple actually. We have Netlify. And what Netlify is actually, I'm already logged in. Let's sign out a little bit. Netlify actually is sort of, how do I say that? Serverless backend, which takes your repository and just does a function you want with it, and then can host the folder with the static website in there. So for us, that is the dist folder I just displayed. So if we log in here, and I've of course set this up already. Oh, beautiful. I of course didn't fill this in. Is this secure, guys? I don't know if this is up to par with any health or security measures Capgemini has, but let's just ignore that for now. I think I should get an SMS now. Yeah, there it is. 056424. So what it does is Netlify basically looks through your repositories, and you can actually add a new site from Git. So I just linked my GitHub account, and if you're authorized, you can see all your projects here. So this Capgemini project I had locally actually is a Git repository I have here as well. So I won't select it right now because I've already set it up, but here it is. And what he does is actually every time I push something, it's going to get built automatically. So you can see, just like every good presenter, I just did some last second tweaks before the presentation. Like 2 hours ago, I still added something to this project. But what it does, if I go to site settings and I go to build and deploy, is run this build command, npm run build. So that's actually the same command I had here, which we've done locally. And then what it does after that, it's going to use the dist directory as its published directory and actually host that part of it. So just as a demo, what I can do here is in the local website, where did I have it? Here, I have a text order now in the button. If I change that in the, I believe it's in the components pages, 11p, if I look for order now, order this product now. If I save this, and if I then do npm run, what was it, 11t build, you can see that this will, the local one, sorry, this one, the button will change from order now whenever it's generated in 0.44 seconds. If I refresh it, order this product now. Since this is already hosted on Netlify as well, we can still see it as the order now text here. But if I go to my Git stuff and I get rid of this stuff and only order now text updated, only publish this new or push this new text in here. Let's go. What you will actually see is that the Netlify will pick up this change from my Git repository. So let's see here if it's pushed. let's go. Of course, it always takes longer when you're doing a demo, but hey. And I guess we should get there whenever I go to my browser and back to Netlify. I go to deploys, and you can see here, order now text updated. It actually picked up the push I just did, and it's building the project again. And it's actually doing that npm run build stuff I did locally, but now doing it on Netlify. And now we will see that, well, I need to scroll a bit, but it says the site is live again. So if I go to my Netlify hosted website and I refresh this, you will see that it reflects here as well. So yeah, that's a bit on how quick you can just grab a simple script which gets the data, use a static site generator like Eleventy to put that in templates and generate this website, and eventually just host it for free on Netlify as well. Like I said, this is probably not the best solution for doing big websites, but it actually gave me a really quick overview on how I can utilize commercetools to display a product of me on a headless front end. But yeah, of course, commercetools isn't just displaying data. It also has a lot of APIs for ordering stuff. And without jumping too far into that code, I've built a small Lambda function for that as well. And I hope Ivo isn't angry at me, because what I did is actually just have a landslide of all these functionalities of posting to my cart, then doing a checkout and doing everything at once in one function. Not really the best practice. But what this means is that this script is in place. And the cool thing of that is that if I use this now, and this is my old address, guys, so if you want to send me a glitter bomb, it's not gonna get far. But the cool thing is, if I put this here and I'll just add test demo behind the street name, and I place this order, it will say thank you for your order. And then if we go to the merchant center, which Ashish just showed us, we go to orders, and I'll zoom in a little bit. Order list, you'll probably see, if everything went correctly, an order which I just placed at 8:44 p.m. And if we scroll down a little bit, you can see that my address, which I just filled in, is actually here. So what I want you guys to do now is go to capgemini.netlify.app and fill in this order form, because what we're going to do, and therefore I'll go back to my presentation, is send you some small goodies, some small stickers actually, because what we're going to do is send you this Capgemini label, which you see on the gem jar over here on the right. And with that sticker, if you paste it on, I don't know, maybe on a gem jar, maybe on your dog, do something crazy, and you post it on LinkedIn with the hashtag Capgemini, you'll have a chance on winning a cool BLD t-shirt. And of course, who doesn't want to have a Capgemini label? I sure want to do that. So that's it. Go to capgemini.netlify.app. I will paste this in the chat after the presentation as well. And make sure to fill it in with your real address, of course, and we'll make sure to send you the stickers. That was my presentation, a small POC on how we can utilize the JAMstack and commercetools together to build a really simple web shop. I'd like to thank everybody for their attention, and don't forget to order those labels. Thank you.
Okay, great. And I would like to thank you as well, Gabriël, for this excellent technical talk about how to, quickly set up a commercetools based site using also Netlify. That's really nice, and it's actually already showing you, how with very small steps you can quickly, add value, create value for your stakeholders, and have a nice journey set up quickly. Because I know that this wasn't built, let's say, in a couple of weeks, but in your own spare time, and then it's even more impressive. So thank you again for that.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe good for everybody. I think I mentioned it at the start of the presentation. If you're interested in the more code technical side of it, the boilerplate, make sure to share it, and maybe I can create a sort of boilerplate repository from it to share it with everyone.
Yeah, sure. We'll definitely do that. Yeah, I suppose it's GitHub where we can share the links of. So great. Checking at the moment also the comment sections for any questions. Now is your chance to ask them. I'll stretch my bridge towards the questions if there are any right now as much as possible. But so far,
question, Bart, did you have an eye on the comments or?
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. But there are no questions at the moment. Only people telling us that it was a nice story. I see from Carl.
And did anyone give a good tip on a guy who can hook up my stove, or was that something I should still?
No,
bummer.
Capgemini.netlify.app it is. So another call for action in this case to join the site. I think looking also at the time, being finished well before 9 o'clock, I think this is okay. There are no further questions. So again, thank you, Gabriel. Also a big thank you to Ashish, to Frank, to Robert, to Ashish I already had, to Arin, if I pronounce it correctly. And of course also last but not least Ivo for being our special guest tonight here from commercetools. Yeah, and of course most important, all our live viewers at home, thank you very much for joining our build talk tonight about composable commerce. We will also share in the chat, or at least I did, some contact info on how you can reach us if you have any further questions about any of the topics discussed tonight. I would also like to point you already to our next build talk that we will have, I think in 3 weeks from now on the, if I remember correctly, the 13th of April. Then actually Donald Hessing and Arin Roy will take the stage, and we'll sort of follow up with the topic that we discussed tonight and explain how you can build a GraphQL API using .NET technologies, which is probably also coming from the from, let's say, from the practical side of things that Donut is involved with in terms of e-commerce as well. So a very interesting talk there. So definitely recommend you to join that one, or at least subscribe to our meetup. And having said that, I would also like to thank the people behind the scenes, especially Kim, for helping us all out arranging this wonderful talk, this wonderful set of talks tonight. And hope to see you soon again. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See ya.